After a sensational start to 2022, it seems like his age and injuries are catching up with Rafael Nadal after all. His decline is evident, and it feels that there's not much left in his career. Could the King of Clay retire sooner than we suspect? The way Rafa began 2022 was just so special. No one would have believed me if I'd said this when Rafa made it to the quarterfinals of Wimbledon last year. He even fought through that abdominal tear to defeat Taylor Fritz. It just felt like he'll go all the way. But that's just life. You never know what's coming next. I mean, injuries were always going to catch up with him. They've been robbing us of so many what-ifs.
Giving it the old Jimmy Connors there.
Particularly from Nadal's career, but it seems that his tennis career is definitely on life support. And now, with Roger Federer gone too, it might not be long before we lose another member of the Big Three. The fact is, he just hasn't recovered properly from his abdominal tear, or that Muller-Weiss syndrome. Yeah, Nadal is struggling with a lot of health concerns. He may have returned to action in 2023 with a bit of recovery under his belt too.
And I have to say, it's probably the best I've seen Rafa here.
However, it seems that those two niggles just aren't going away. But then you add the latest injury to the mix and realize just how sensitive the whole situation truly is. I wouldn't need to remind you that tennis is a game that will test you to your limits even when you're fully fit. And here, I'm talking about a 36-year-old with millions of miles in his legs, constant injuries, yet not giving up on a single point.
Outrageous.
It just feels like a slow and painful end to what has been such a fantastic career. But that latest injury feels a lot more devastating. Rafa revealed his diagnosis on Twitter. After his most recent shock defeat at the Australian Open to unseeded Mackenzie McDonald, Rafa tweeted that after carrying out medical tests, he knows what the latest injury is. According to his tweet, the MRIs confirmed a grade 2 lesion in the iliacus psoas of his left leg. I'm not a medical expert, but Rafa helped everyone out in that regard too. Apparently, normal recovery takes around 6 to 8 weeks. That's with sports rest and anti-inflammatory physiotherapy. But it'll definitely take some doing if Rafa is to return to action and still play at the level that we're used to seeing him play, because injuries aren't the only concern here. Rafa struggled to make an impact even when he was fit.
Well judged. A brilliant little chip forehand, arguably one of the most important shots at times.
Now, I know this might be a bit of a reach, especially when you consider that he hasn't exactly been 100% since that injury at Wimbledon, but even when we take all that into account, it's fair to say that Nadal isn't looking like the player we've been so accustomed to watching. His poor end to 2022 was something of an indication, but my concern is more so in regard to 2023. For the first time in his career, Nadal started a year with straight losses. While he's never really experienced a lot of triumphs in the Australian Open, the Spaniard was shipped out of the first Grand Slam by an unseeded American star as the defending champion.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Yeah. Jan Satrel.
Jan
2016.
Satrel, who had never won a match in a Grand Slam at that time.
It was probably a bigger concern watching his wife in tears when he took the medical timeout as McDonald closed out the game, but it's more than just a loss. That injury, along with definite mental strain, could lead to a potentially early retirement for Rafa. Still though, it's not all bad. Yeah, Rafa's set to make his return to the tour by Roland Garros. As if that was ever in any doubt, right? No matter what the injury, Rafa would never sit out the French Open. And even now, with 6 to 8 weeks of rest prescribed, Rafa could time his return to action just in time for the clay season. It's something we've seen far too many times in recent years. I've got zero doubts that the same will happen again. But could it be his last tournament? Zverev thinks it might be the end of his professional career. The German star believes that Rafa Nadal will retire after playing in the French Open. In fact, he added that Nadal will retire after winning this year's Roland Garros. Of course, that much was a given. When Nadal is playing the French Open, he's winning it too. No question asked.
That's why they pay him the big bucks.
And Zverev believes that the same will happen this year too. Once it does, the German revealed that Nadal will retire. Interesting take. But Nadal was quick to deny any such retirement rumors. He did say that he has no plans of retiring anytime soon.
No. Made me jump in my seat when he hit that.
Especially the person that needed.
Although, that was before this latest injury, and the changing landscape of tennis could influence his decision. After all, winning has become more and more difficult. Many generations have been trying to break the Big Three's monopoly on Grand Slams. They've all failed. The next gen that was supposed to take over is now almost out of its prime.
This was the big shot. The overhead just didn't get away from the Spaniard, and then look at this, just a flip.
It's an exaggeration, of course, but even they're struggling. But the good news for the younger talent is that the youngest generation has experienced more success, and that means the competition is getting stiffer with every passing day. We all saw that with Carlos Alcaraz's brilliant 2022 campaign.
But the Marine was playing unbelievable, but yeah, as I said, I believe in myself all the time, and of course, the support today in the Arthur.
And with the likes of Jannik Sinner and co making huge strides too, so it's not going to be easy for Nadal to make a comeback anymore. Not that it was ever easy, but it'll take some doing if Rafa is to return to the tour and showcase the levels that we're used to seeing. I'm not brave enough to rule him out completely, but it does look more challenging than it has ever been. Of course, I'll still be betting on him to win the Roland Garros.
Definitely feels like the beginning of the end.
Because let's not forget, there is some added motivation for Nadal to do so. The race for majors is heating up. If Djokovic wasn't within a whisker of equaling the record for most majors,
It's like, okay, man. Yeah, that's fine.
I'd wager Rafa would also be contemplating retirement and would be a lock to take it this year.
Paint.
However, the race has only heated up in 2022, and with Rafa leading only by 1, chances are things could get very interesting if Djokovic goes all the way to Melbourne. He's in the semifinals, so just 2 more wins are needed to equal Rafa's record.
Showtime in London.
However, even if Djokovic does that, the next major will be in Paris. And Djokovic, for all his skill and brilliance, knows that if there's one Grand Slam with a firm favorite, it's always the French Open and Rafa Nadal. So, practically, Djokovic has the legs to overtake the all-time majors record. And even if he doesn't win in Australia and Nadal wins in France, Djokovic will still be the favorite to take over because he has age on his side. But for now, that's enough motivation for Nadal to hang on to his career, even if it's by the barest of margins. At the same time though, if there's someone who can come back from this, it's Rafa too. Few people have been tested by injuries more than Nadal, and he'll use that as a positive when he spends the next 2 months on the sideline. This is familiar territory for him. Maybe it all works out for him and he can have another mini resurgence. A final hurrah, perhaps. Either way, though, there's not much left in the tank for the King of Clay. If not in 2023, he'll definitely say goodbye in 2024. So, watch him play and marvel at the brilliance of the man. But for now, it's goodbye from our side, and we'll see you in the next video.